The Verdict, a Sidebar production, hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. As a part of its traditional and continuing commitment to public and community service, Crow & Dunlevy sponsors The Verdict. Also sponsored by Delta Dental, Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, and C.H. Guernsey & Company. Each week on The Verdict, we present an objective discussion of contemporary and legal issues, topical issues that will affect Oklahomans in their daily lives. The Verdict, a Sidebar production.
And welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett, and I am joined as always by one of Oklahoma's top legal experts, Kent Myers. And Kent, today we're going to learn about airports.
What's going on at the airport? And I should say airports. Yeah, today we're going to have representatives from the Oklahoma City Airport and the Tulsa Airport to talk about problems that they are encountering and opportunities that they're taking advantage of since 9/11. Of course, we all know that the security at the airport has gone up considerably since that. As have costs of security, but at the same time, we're going to find out about how airports are financed and find out that much of any individual airport's revenue comes from an airline, and at the same time that security costs are going up, airlines are having financial problems and some going into bankruptcy. So we're going to be talking to these two very knowledgeable gentlemen about the Oklahoma City Airport and the Tulsa Airport, and we're going to find out today what's going on at the airport.
All right, look forward to it. We will get started. We're going to learn about the business of running an airport. You're watching The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
All children deserve a life with hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. Oklahoma Lawyers for Children has over 500 of the best attorneys and volunteers who donate their time and service to represent children in Oklahoma County. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The Able Law Firm, based in Oklahoma City and recognized nationally for its superior legal ability and very high ethical standards. If you've been injured or believe someone you love has been a victim and needs to talk to an attorney, call the Able Law Firm. Initial consultations are free. The Able Law Firm. In Oklahoma City, the number is 239-7046.
St. Gregory's University has been changing the lives of people like me for 125 years. Affordable, private Catholic education, balanced with dedication to community and service, makes St. Gregory special. We're extremely proud of our students' outstanding academic achievements and our nationally ranked athletic teams. It's when you help a student build a future of balance, integrity, and service that you change a life forever. St. Gregory's, a community for life.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers is going to introduce our guests.
We are very pleased today to have two guests, one representing the Oklahoma City Airport and the other representing the Tulsa Airport. Across the table from me is Luther Trent. Luther has been Director of Airports for Oklahoma City for the last 10 years, but has in fact more than 22 years experience in the Department of Airports here in Oklahoma City. He has a business degree from Oklahoma State University and interestingly enough, a Master's of Divinity degree from Phillips University in Enid. Luther, thank you so much for joining us on The Verdict.
It's my pleasure. It's good to be here.
On my right is Richard Studenny from Tulsa. Richard is counsel for the Tulsa Municipal Airport. He holds various positions with the Tulsa Airport entities. He's been involved in the representation of the Tulsa airports for 28 years. He has an undergraduate degree and his law degree from the University of Tulsa, and he's an adjunct faculty member at Oklahoma State University in their aviation curriculum. Richard, thanks for driving down from Tulsa and joining us on The Verdict.
Well, thank you. Enjoy it.
Luther, let me start with you. I wish you first, and then when you're finished, ask Richard to kind of pick right up there. Describe for our viewers the Oklahoma City Airport, just kind of interesting facts such as size, utilization, whatever you want to tell them.
Well, Oklahoma City, of course, is an air carrier airport that handles about 3.2 million passengers per year. Now, that classifies us as what the FAA would call a medium hub airport. We're probably the smallest medium hub airport, but medium hub is an airport to where our flights all fly into hub airports where you have the lane airline changing to get to your other cities.
Like Dallas or Kansas
Dallas,
City?
Atlanta, Chicago. The flights originate out of Oklahoma City, and the passengers change at those locations to get to their final destinations to a great extent. You have a few that bypass that system with Southwest or Great Plains. Probably the best way to describe our airport in Oklahoma City right now is an airport in transition. We have, for the last couple of years, been remodeling, renovating, and expanding our airport. The total project will be approximately $110 million when we finish it in 2005, and so we will change the entire face of what you see when you come into Oklahoma City. The terminal will be completely different. We'll have new entrances, new concessions, new gates, and a complete new look. So we're very pleased that we're going to give the passenger a new look when he comes into Oklahoma City.
Thanks, Luther. Richard, can you give a similar description for Tulsa?
Yes, it's actually quite easy in the sense that both airports are really a very similar size and character. Tulsa is only about 3 million versus their 3.25. We probably have almost, I think we have the exact number of air carrier operations and airlines. Tulsa has 81 daily departures from our 12 air carriers. We also have 4 cargo passengers. With that slight difference in numbering, Tulsa is ranked now as one of the largest small hub airports. We both were both in the medium hub range, and what's happened over a number of years over the last decade is there are other cities in the United States that have grown at a more rapid pace than the cities of Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So we've all sagged a bit in the rankings, but a lot of similarity between the two airports.
How is airline travel different today than it was before September 11th in the events? Now, we can all, the passenger obviously sees the increased screening, but how has your industry changed?
Well, the industry's changed significantly in where the passenger goes when they leave Oklahoma City. We're starting to see passengers drive to shorter distance locations because the time, when you add screening to the time the passenger is at the airport, some other destinations are looking attractive to them for driving because it doesn't take any longer.
Well, is that because people say, well, I'm going to fly to Dallas, it's easier? And now maybe they're saying it's not easier anymore.
That's correct. It isn't easier any longer. And so Dallas as a location was our heaviest traveled location up till after 9/11. And now we see Houston take over that spot, so it's dropped significantly. And I think the passenger evaluates their time and the trouble they're going to have to go through in going through screening.
So is it going to come back, or are people going to be driving to Houston next? So which way is it going to trend?
I think it'll come back, and I think what we're going to see is that screening is going to get more efficient as time progresses. They're going to get better at it, the equipment's going to get better, and the passenger is going to find that wait to be less and the convenience to be greater to go ahead and fly in the future. So I believe it'll come back.
Richard?
I echo exactly what Luther is saying, except I think what your viewers would probably need to remember, even starting this year, is that what we've seen in the industry is somewhat consolidation. There will be, in fact, now, anywhere from 12 to 16% fewer flights, depending on the air carrier, airport, and the airline. And even if there are still the same frequency of flights, Oklahoma City to Dallas, Tulsa to Dallas, you may in fact see smaller aircraft. So if you're thinking about taking the family on vacation or going on business trips where it may have been possible ultimately to call at the last minute and get on a particular flight at a particular time, you may have to take greater care in recognizing that there has been this diminution or reduction in seats going in and out of airports. Tulsa, as an example, at the moment has probably about 7,400 seats a day on a daily basis, and that's down about 10 to 12% from what it was a couple of years ago.
You know, what the passenger is telling us is, well, there are fewer passengers flying, but the flights are still full. There are fewer seats, they're still full.
Just smaller aircraft.
Smaller aircraft, that's right.
Regional jets, especially at airports of the character of Tulsa and Oklahoma City, are really becoming more pronounced in the marketplace.
Let me ask you a question, just staying with you, Richard, for a minute. How's this new federal system of screening working? As I understand it, the employees standing at the screening machines are now federal employees.
Yes, and they have been for the transition has occurred at various times over the last year, but they're all employees of a new federal department called the Transportation Security Administration. When it first came into existence, it was part of the U.S. Department of Transportation. With the creation of the new cabinet position in the United States, the Executive Department, several months ago, they were moved over to the new Department of Homeland Security, being headed up by Secretary Ridge.
How's it working?
I think as they transition and as they learn, for the most part, I think it appears to be working at a very good, reasonable pace, depending on the ebb and flow of the number of flights going in and out of an airport at a particular time. You may have lines that are longer and shorter, but overall for airports, especially the size and character of Tulsa and Oklahoma City, most passengers do not have a long wait to go through federal security.
Richard, just a few seconds left
Sure.
in this segment. Are there unfunded mandates still? If they're federal employees, I would assume federal government pays those people, but are there other unfunded mandates?
Yeah, the big problem that both Tulsa and Oklahoma City, as other airports, are having is that to change the character and size of terminal buildings and the flow of passengers, to make it simple and easy for both the airlines, there's a couple estimates. As an example, the trade associations representing airports, which is the Airports Council International, has estimated up to $5 billion for airport capital costs that are not being paid for by the federal government.
Nationwide.
Nationwide. The U.S. Department of Transportation estimates between $2 and $5 billion, and the Transportation Security Administration alone has estimated that through January of this year, $2 billion has been spent by airports to accommodate not only larger screening points, but also, more importantly, the places to house the EDS machines, which are screening the luggage. You just can't drop them into an airport, as an example, because they weigh about 900,000 pounds apiece. So even if you had space on the second floor of your terminal, when it was originally constructed, they probably did not envision putting a machine that's about twice the size of our table here and weighs 900,000 pounds on a floor structure. So all these airports are having to be modified to accommodate this type of equipment.
Let me jump in here and get us to a break. We're visiting with Luther Trent and Richard Studenny. They are involved with the two largest airports in the state of Oklahoma. You're watching The Verdict.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311.
Bringing out the best in each student. That is the simple goal and tradition of Heritage Hall. The focus on the individual shapes the educational experience at Heritage Hall. Each student benefits from small classes, able, dedicated teachers, a solid academic curriculum, and exceptional co-curricular programs of athletics, arts, community service, and other activities, parental involvement, personalized counseling, and the development of responsibility, integrity, and love of learning. If you want education taught with pride, then you want Heritage Hall.
I enrich our cultural landscape.
I help define our quality of life.
I am one of 4,000 artists in central Oklahoma who receive
support from Allied Arts, this community's united arts organization.
I am an Allied artist.
Like this?
Good. You did great on that test.
Good.
Good kid.
Great. You're the best kid ever.
Okay, you want him to breathe.
Encourage them. Get them to graduate. Don't drop out on your kids. For more tips to keep them in school, call 877-4-A-KID.
Mick Cornett and Kent Myers back on The Verdict. We're talking to Luther Trent and Richard Studenny about Oklahoma's airports and air travel in general. Kent, what's next?
Well, I'd like to talk perhaps to Richard about, generally speaking, how our airport's financed. I don't think our viewer, I certainly didn't know, I don't think our average viewer knows how airports are financed. Do you have some info about that, perhaps nationally first, before we go to your individual airport?
Sure, we do. In fact, we have a chart which is, reflects national averages, and if you'll see that airport revenue generally is reflected by 55% of the typical operating revenue is from airlines, parking fees about 17%, rental cars about 8%, and then it just goes on. Interesting enough, irrespective of the price of food and beverages and retail items at airports, that generally only makes up about 1.3%. Again, these are national averages, but that's pretty much reasonably consistent across the board.
Okay, without reference to the chart now, let's talk about Tulsa.
Okay.
How's Tulsa financed?
Tulsa is a self-sustaining enterprise type entity, and what that means is that the airport exists by its own revenues. In other words, there are no City of Tulsa general funds, no City of Tulsa tax dollars, sales tax dollars, which go to provide funding for the airport. The airport operates and maintains, is expanded, and covers all its capital costs by funds generated on the airport. Again, the airline revenue in Tulsa making up probably about 50% of our overall revenue, so we're a bit different than the national average, though the parking and rental car concessions are consistent with the chart that we've shown. Other airports, as an example, larger airports that may have more tourism, like in Orlando with Disney World, their rent-a-car numbers, as alone the last time I checked 2 or 3 years ago, they were making about $8 million alone off of rent-a-car revenue from just the tourism going there.
Well, now, the Tulsa airport's a big landlord, isn't it?
Tulsa is a big landlord. There's about 15,000 employees that work on or about the airport. One of the reasons is that one of the Tulsa Airport Trusts owns the American Airlines Maintenance and Engineering Center, which is about 250 acres, employs approximately 10,000 people. And so between American Airlines on that piece of property, Boeing Company, International Truck Company has its a bus subsidiary there. There's about 15,000 workers, about $3.2 billion impact for the metropolitan area, and easily about $1 billion in payroll that's associated with the airport.
Luther, tell us about Oklahoma City and how it's financed.
Okay, Oklahoma City also is a self-sustaining airport, operating off of the revenues
no
that
tax
we
dollars.
generate. No tax dollars, no general fund dollars come to the airport. The city does provide services to the airport, but those services are billed to the airport, and so we pay for them. So
when you see a policeman out there, that's an Oklahoma City policeman, but you're paying the city of Oklahoma City for that person's services.
That's correct. We pay a little over $2 million a year to the city of Oklahoma City for the police officers that you see at Oklahoma City's airport. Off of the chart, we're probably even a little different than Tulsa. When you get into the revenue picture, we have less airline revenues as a percentage because we own and operate the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center in Oklahoma City, and that's a federal installation. Again, about 5,000 employees over there at any point in time. And so there is a very large rent component come from them for building rents. But obviously, again, we have an outflow out of that too for debt service and maintenance.
Ken, if I can like
Sure.
to make a point and reiterate that for both on Oklahoma City and Tulsa, for the citizens of both communities, it's very, very important in these times of difficult fiscal environments, especially for northeast Oklahoma, Tulsa perhaps a little more economically impacted without having a large state government, that when citizens see things happening at the airport, terminal development, runway reconstruction, additional police officers, et cetera, for their own security, those funds for those services are being generated from the commercial tenants at the airport.
That's correct.
We all know the airlines aren't doing well, Richard. How does that impact you?
Well, it's exceedingly interesting. When you have airline agreements, which are a major contributor, of course, to the revenues we were just talking about, Tulsa has what they call a residual airline agreement, which means that you take all the airport revenues, including the terminal revenues, which the airlines are committed to, total those up, look at your operating budget, and the difference between the revenues and what you actually need to sustain, operate, and maintain the airports is made up by the airlines through a landing fee component.
And that will change depending on what the number is.
It may change depending on the number of flights coming in, the size of the aircraft, and a variety of other factors. They, in essence, guarantee the bottom line for the fiscal environment at the airport.
So you charge them to land?
We charge them to land, that's correct.
You charge them to take off?
So if they haven't paid their bills, they just keep circling?
That's where you put a very large Denver boot on the tire. But no, so the health of the airlines coming into your airport, both not only for their fiscal own operating needs, but the frequency and the number of flights coming in and the amount of rentable space they are using are exceedingly important components for the airport economic environment. So if they're weak, we are weak, and that's a very important factor.
Well, about a minute left. Ken.
Okay, Luther, real quickly, I assume that's the same for Oklahoma City.
Very close, except that we are different in one respect. We're what they call a compensatory agreement with the airlines rather than residual. We charge them for the space they rent, and then we are able to keep revenues from the other areas of the airport to make up the difference of what we need.
Okay, guys, real quickly, prediction. Airline, further shakeout, further consolidation, what do you predict?
I think we'll see further shakeout. The airlines are losing money at a rate now that cannot continue, and I think we'll see fewer airlines in the future.
I agree. I think there will be consolidation, not through acquisition or mergers, but simply through the bankruptcy process, regrettably.
Re-regulation? We deregulated in '78. Is the government going to re-regulate?
I don't think it'll be looked at anytime in the near future. I would not like to see it.
I concur. Other than perhaps some consumer issues which may be revitalized that occurred prior to 9/11, I simply don't see economic re-regulation of the industry.
I want to thank you both for coming. Mr. Studenny, Mr. Trent, appreciate it, enjoyed it a lot.
Thanks,
Kent and I'll be back with a final word after this.
The Able Law Firm, based in Oklahoma City and recognized nationally for its superior legal ability and very high ethical standards. If you've been injured or believe someone you love has been a victim and needs to talk to an attorney, call the Able Law Firm. Initial consultations are free. The Able Law Firm. In Oklahoma City, the number is 239-7046.
This wall of honor is placed here for a time to remind us that freedom is not free, but it can be bought, not with money. It must be purchased in human lives. This wall of honor bears the names of all the Americans who gave their own life in the latest payment for freedom. We honor those who have died in fighting for our freedom. But this wall of honor is also built for the living and those still serving. We invite all of you to bring your photos of currently serving military personnel to be placed on the wall of honor. And I want to remind you that those who are serving in the current war in Iraq represent only a small portion of the troops who are stationed all across the world.
Finding a good ag real estate lender shouldn't be hit or miss, and by choosing Chisholm Trail Farm Credit for your next ag real estate loan, well, you'll be right on target. With interest rates being the lowest they've been in years, now's as good a time as any to buy that new farm, ranch, or your own hunting and fishing paradise. So when it's time to talk to someone about ag real estate financing, get on target and see the friendly folks at Chisholm Trail Farm Credit, your ag loan specialist.
Where can you find the best value in a slightly used home? Image Homes has traded for more homes than any other builder in the Oklahoma City metro area. We have 19 trade homes located in Harrah, Midwest City, Oklahoma City, War Acres, Moore, and the Yukon area available immediately. With the largest inventory of any builder in Oklahoma City, Image Homes can offer you the best home value in the metro. Most homes have new carpet, paint, trees, and are like brand new. Call Steve at 354-6688 or 324-5855 to save money on a home in any area of Oklahoma City.
We are back to wrap up another edition of The Verdict. Today we learned about airports.
Talking about two regional airports, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, that are struggling to serve the public and doing, quite frankly, under all the circumstances, doing a grand job. It's not really surprising, I think, if you look at the way both Tulsa and Oklahoma City airports are run. First of all, they are run by trustees that are usually, and I think in all cases, quite well experienced and well known and exceptional citizens in the community. They are the trustees of the airport trusts in both cities, and then they hire the professionals. And you've got a good example today of two fine professionals that are running both the Oklahoma City and Tulsa airports in varying capacities. And considering the problems that airports are having around the country, the reason Oklahoma City and Tulsa are running reasonably well is, I think, in large part due to the quality people that are involved in the management on a day-to-day basis.
We saw an example of that today.
We did indeed.
Don't forget our website, theverdict.tv. Go there, check it out, and send us a message on what shows you'd like to see on a future episode of The Verdict. Thanks again to our guests, Luther Trent and Richard Studenny. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next time on The Verdict.